Plus Complete Soy comes from the largest non-GMO organic soy fields in the entire world. And it's water washed, which is the most expensive but highest quality processing you can do for soy with the least alteration of your end product, which is the complete soy. These are the 21 amino acids out of which you make over 30,000 proteins in your body. These on the right are called essential amino acids because from these you can make all of the other 12. From these 9 amino acids you can make every protein your body will ever require, and they are all found in Juice Plus Complete. Now the international standard for protein quality is called the Protein Digestibility Corrected Amino Acid Score. A perfect score is 1. Most soy products have a score of 0.93 or less. The Juice Plus Complete Soy has a perfect score of 1. It's one of the very few plants that have a perfect protein quality score. Wheat, by the way, has a protein quality score of 0.4. Now I want to talk about the myth of phytoestrogen. We have 2 estrogens in our body, whether we're male or female. Estrogen receptors. Estrogens attached to these receptors, like a lock and a key, and stimulate. But there are molecules called SERMs, selective estrogen receptor modifiers, that attach to that receptor, but they don't stimulate it. In fact, they block it. The best known SERM is tamoxifen. Women take it for 5 years if they have breast cancer to prevent the recurrence. Soy, the isoflavones of soy are SERMs. They are not estrogen. Now think about this. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of children around the world who cannot tolerate cow milk. They're raised on soy formula and then soy milk right up through the teenage years. There has never been a case of abnormal sexual development in any of those children. Because estrogen, or the soy, is not an estrogen, it's a SERM. Now, people talk about soy and breast cancer all the time, and it's changing. The last 10 years we've seen a lot of research and a lot of evidence. We've known for a long time, the more soy a young girl consumes before puberty, the less likely she'll have breast cancer as an adult. This is a study, one of many now. This is called LACE, Life After Cancer Epidemiology. They looked at thousands of women who were taking tamoxifen for their breast cancer. Those who had the highest intake of soy along with their tamoxifen had 60% less recurrence of their breast cancer. So soy is perfectly safe and healthy for all men and women. I want to talk about grains. Archaeologists tell us the very first grains that we grew as humankind was einkorn. It had 14 chromosomes. It met up with another 14 chromosomes called goat grass, and the result was emmer, 28 chromosomes. That's the unleavened bread of the Old Testament. But modern wheat has another 14 chromosomes, 42. And the more chromosomes you get, the more they tend to be modified and changed. Now, we have not yet genetically modified wheat. What's been done has been with what we call hybridization. It's not genetic manipulation, but it's coming. If we're going to feed 50 million people, we're going to have genetically modified wheat, but it's not here yet. We sing about our amber waves of grain. During the first half of the 20th century, the planet became dependent on wheat. And we had to fertilize the field. The chemical companies were making millions of dollars with fertilizers to make the wheat fields have better yield per acre. And that made kernels very big, and they collapsed the stalks. They were 4 feet tall, and they were thin. They couldn't support the weight of those kernels. Farmers call that lodging. Along came a farmer from Minnesota, Norman Borlaug, Nobel Prize and multiple others in every country around the world. He is credited with saving 1 billion lives from starvation. 1 billion lives. Because he developed dwarf wheat. I have had the pleasure, a colleague of his was at our home visiting one time, and he worked with Norman colleague for 10 years. And he knew all about it. He's a plant geneticist, and he was fun to talk to, I promise you. 95% of the wheat grown in the world now is dwarf wheat. But let's talk about that protein of wheat. It's called gluten. It causes celiac disease in some children. It's pediatric disease, sometimes fatal. But there are now adults who have consumed wheat for over 60 years who are developing celiac disease. You see, the gluten is not the same that they grew up on. The gluten has been changing so rapidly that it's more allergenic for a lot of people. We have over 5 times as many celiacs now in the United States as we have had in the past. It bothers the skin and the brain. If you're interested in read wheat belly or grain brain, it's kind of addictive. People withdraw if they try to stop taking wheat. They have withdrawal symptoms. But there's also a problem with the carbohydrate of wheat. It too is not what it used to be. It becomes sugar immediately. Your blood sugar will increase higher from eating 2 slices of whole wheat bread than 2 tablespoons of table sugar. That's called glycemic index. So there's a lot of people who cannot eat wheat because of the protein, and there's a lot of people who will not eat wheat because of the carbohydrate. But the grains of Juice Plus Complete are ancient grains. They have never been hybridized. They have been supporting populations, particularly in South America, for centuries. Amaranth, millet, quinoa. We call them grains, but technically they're seeds. As many as 60,000 on a single blossom. And it's very low glycemic because the carbohydrate hadn't been modified either. You say, why do you talk about fiber? Fiber is critical to human life. You've got 10 times more bacteria in your intestines than you have human cells in your body. That's 10 to the 13 versus 10 to the 14. And that's called the microbiome. And it depends how many of this species you have and how many of this species you have that determines what's going on in your life. And the bacteria in your intestines influence every part of your being. They influence your immune system, your thought processes, the hormones that are functioning in your body. And by the same token, everything you do in life, all of the choices you make, influence your microbiome. We now can identify different microbiome patterns associated with different diseases. And you ask, well, which came first? The change of the microbiome or the disease? And we don't know yet. But this is where it's going. This research is exploding right now. And yet, 90% of Americans don't get enough fiber in their diet. 28 grams for women, 38 for men. Something we can make a difference. And the Juice Plus fiber is the finest fiber you can put in your body.